2-hour delay for transportation. Bainbridge, Guilford, a 2-hour delay. Cherry Valley, Springfield, a 2-hour delay since. Green Central School, a 2-hour delay. Gilbertsville, Mount Upton, closed today. Jefferson, closed. Lawrence on a 2-hour delay. Oneonta and St. Mary's, a 2-hour delay. Milford, a 2-hour delay. More schools are closed today. Oneonta YMCA Preschool closed. Oxford Academy Central School closed today. Norwich schools closed today. Richfield Spring School.
Signs of spring appear starting in mid-February. The snow contains more moisture, creeks swell, spilling over their banks, and sugar houses throughout the Northeast prepare for this year's sugar season. The process hasn't changed much since it was first shown to early Americans, and it mostly involves evaporation. After opening the sugar house, one of the first things a sugar maker does is procure fuel, usually wood, for the process of boiling. There are two prerequisites for good firewood for sugaring. First, it should be dry, and secondly, it should be the right size for the firebox. Dry firewood is important to maintain an even heat. If the firewood is too big, it will tamp down the fire, or if it is too small, the fire will be cooled by opening and closing the door too much. Also, the firebox needs to be stacked loosely, leaving openings through which flames can pass. The next stage in the process is the tapping of the sugar bush, the total number of trees old enough to be tapped. The basic tools needed for tapping are a cordless drill, a 7/16" drill bit, and a hammer. Maple trees make sap every spring to get the leaves to bud out. This sweet sap has been harvested by farmers to produce their year's supply of sugar, and from the early days of America, they have been self-sufficient and made use of their ingenuity. Many of these acquired skills still used today. Backyard sugar makers beg, borrow, and manufacture equipment to make the process easier. But make no mistake, making sugar involves arduous work and is labor-intensive. The maple sugaring season, however, bends to the whim of Mother Nature. Taps extract the sap, drop by drop. The sap is obtained by boring a hole in the tree, inserting a tap, and either hanging a bucket from the tap or connecting it to tubing, which runs throughout the sugar bush. Sugar makers keep count of the total taps put out, not how many trees are in the sugar bush.
Barrel's gonna go here.
That's 32 taps.
Up.
Yeah. Oh wow, look at it flowing. I wonder if the camera can see that.
Probably not against light.
It's spewing though.
Have to wait this tree, you know.
Wow, look at all the wood chips.
Yeah.
It's all frozen though, you can't touch it.
Look
But
how it's undermined back and stuff. Wow. Nice wood.
The most important single factor of this process is the weather. Sap will not run below 32 degrees and will stop running at around 50 degrees. Sugar makers hang their hopes on having the daytime temperatures hover in the mid-40s and having nighttime temperatures drop below 32 degrees. Taps extract the sap drop by drop and collect in buckets or barrels, usually galvanized buckets which hold 14 to 16 quarts and have covers to prevent snow, rain, and leaves from getting into the sap. It takes about 40 gallons of sap to produce 1 gallon of maple syrup. If the sap contains 3% sugar, it is considered a high sugar content and will make light syrup. Most sugar makers try to predict how the sap will run and what the weather conditions will be, and their guesses are as dependable as anyone's concerning the weather. The sap is usually collected after each run because it quickly ferments. Once the sap is collected, it is pumped to the storage tank where gravity will help feed it into the evaporator, a device found in the sugar house specifically designed to push the more dense liquid forward into the pan by using a float system to keep it at a constant level. The evaporator consists of, at its base, a firebox in which an arch is made to force the flames across the bottom of the pan. The front pan is made up of 2 sections, and the rear, flat pan, is covered by a hood to preheat the sap and to speed up the evaporation process. The sap is kept flowing through a regulator in the back pan at the same rate as the evaporation releases steam. At times, clouds of steam are so dense one can only see a few feet. The float system in the evaporator controls the flow of the sap that is heated in the back pan, using the steam created. It is necessary for a sugar house to have a handy water supply, so by using the condensation created by the preheater, a reservoir of hot water is made available for cleaning and rinsing out filters. As the sap boils wildly in the evaporator, each bay will be at a different temperature. The bay on the right showing signs to the sugar maker, which is confirmed by the thermometer, that it is ready for draw-off. Before drawing off, though, a quick walk around the evaporator is in order to be sure everything is working correctly. Is there enough sap in the storage tank? Is the regulator letting in sap? Is the back pan level deeper than the front pan? Is the firebox full? What does the thermometer read? The thermometer is important to the sugar maker because sugar causes the boiling point to be raised, and when it reaches 7 degrees above the boiling point of water, the sap is filtered and put into a finishing pan. The maple syrup could be finished off in the evaporator, but it is easier to finish off the concentrated sap in smaller batches in a pan where the heat can be turned off when the sap reaches the point of syrup, at about 219 degrees to be exact. At this point, a hydrometer is used to measure the density of the syrup. A A hydrometer is a graduated glass tube weighted at the bottom, which floats at the level where the weight of the syrup will equal 11 pounds to the gallon. The finished syrup is then drained into the filter tank, which holds filters that remove particles that would cloud the finished product. Filters are made of cloth or felt and are shaped like a big cone. The filter tank is used to keep syrup hot when bottling, ensuring a sterile pack that will seal the cap by creating a vacuum when it cools. Then water is used to wash the bottles, the filters, and the countertop. The sugar maker will follow this process as many times as Mother Nature will allow the sap to run. Once the sap stops running, the sugar maker will clean up and shut down the sugar house, but, like a farmer, he must make hay while the sun shines, running the sugar making process until the sap runs dry. Only at the end of the season is the total number of gallons determined, and only then do we find out just how generous Mother Nature has been.